Blog Talk
Hello?
Radio. Hey, Kevin, hold tight.
Yeah, do you want me to call Doc or you have Doc?
No, you're good.
I'm here.
Okay.
Archangels, ghosts, and Bigfoot, oh my. It's just another night for Supernatural Girlz. Real stories, real answers to life's biggest supernatural mysteries. And now for another exciting interview with paranormal experts from this world and others. Here's your host, paranormal researcher Patricia Baker, on the one, the only Supernatural Girlz.
Welcome, everyone, to another exciting episode of Supernatural Girlz Radio. I'm your host, Patricia Baker, and I am here with my co-host, PK, all the way from Tucson. How are you, PK?
Absolutely fabulous. Had a wonderful day. Weather's getting to be beautiful. Can't beat it.
Hey, I'm
all
happy
the
for
spring
you.
flowers. I cannot believe with all the rains that we've complained about, but the earth is just peppered with spring flowers everywhere you go. It's just beautiful.
Beautiful. That's great. Well, we're even getting sunshine, and I hope some warmer temperatures here in New England. And do we have a great show planned tonight for everybody? We have two tremendous guests, Detective Kevin Gannon and Dr. Lee Gilbertson from the Oxygen television series, The Smiley Face Killers, The Hunt for Justice. And they're going to join us in just a few minutes. But first, PK, we got to check in with you and see what you've been up to. I know you've been looking at the numbers of these cases, and you have some information. So tell us what's going on.
Well, one of the things that I keep picking up, well, firstly, we're going to, as soon as April hits here, hang on to your seat because there's going to be a lot of things that are going to be made known to us. Secrets are going to start popping up here, there, and everywhere. I'm just going to use the phrase, follow the breadcrumbs, because things are going to happen. Now, everyone will have a difficult time sleeping tonight. I shouldn't say everyone. The majority of people will have a difficult time sleeping tonight because there's a lot of things going on, and secrets are just on the verge of popping out. All these things that have been ongoing where there's no common denominator that makes us feel more positive about what's happening than the fact that all these different issues taking place in different places, and yet they're like a mirror of one another. Doesn't matter what part of the country, where we are, what's going on, they're happening. It's a time when you're going to have to start taking a look at not just what we think is going on, but open the mind a little bit and let the mind take a better look into what's taking place. The common thread, is there something going on within family? We'll say family or blood relatives. What's the common denominator about the cases that we're going to be talking about tonight? What issue that makes it so open for us to see that is totally different from what we would expect? There's so many.
So we're in for some surprises, huh?
Oh, very much so. And our two guests tonight are going to rattle some people's cages because they have information that we need to know. People need to pay attention. But everyone I shouldn't say everyone, too many people sidestep it and think, well, it's going to be okay. But what is the common thread that goes on with all of these cases in different areas, different parts, different families? Has it something to do with the genetics? Has it something to do, with, is there a blood relative connection somewhere along the line to the perpetrator or to those that are being chosen, shall we say, as the victim? Hate to put it that way. That's a joke.
I know. I know. Well, there's got to be something going on here, and I just love what this team of detectives is doing, because this takes a lot of guts. These men are walking into uncharted territory. They are looking at the facts and coming up with very different conclusions. And you know that a lot of police departments do not want to hear about that. And this is not to disparage the police in any way. They have a tough job. But these cases need to be looked at as homicides. And this is what Detective Gannon and Dr. Gilbertson and their other two team members are doing. And we're very grateful to them for the work that they're doing. We want to encourage our audience to get behind this effort also and take part in the conversation. I know they have a Facebook page, and we are hoping that their series is going to get renewed because it was a very, very compelling series. It was terrific. And again, it brought all of these things to light. As you mentioned, PK, we really shouldn't turn away from this. We need to pay attention because it's still going on, and it looks like it may be global.
Well, that's the part that's crazy about it. There's got to be some type of a common thread somewhere. It's just impossible that so much similarity could go on in so many different places.
Yes, there's got to be something. Well, I'm going to introduce these gentlemen now. I know. We're going to ask questions, and we're going to see what else we can bring to this conversation. So tonight we have Detective Kevin Gannon. He retired as a sergeant in the Detective Bureau from the New York City Police Department after 20 years of service, which included more than 14 years as a supervisor. He has diversified training and experience in personal and physical security, investigation, surveillance, and disaster response. Now, I could just spend the whole show reading these guys' resumes because they are so illustrious in what they have accomplished. These are the best of the best. Detective Gannon has made over 1,000 felony apprehensions for crimes involving narcotics, burglaries, robberies, and homicides. And he has been awarded almost 100 medals for bravery. He was the most decorated member of the Special Investigation Division of the Detective Bureau and one of the most highly decorated sergeants in the NYPD before his retirement. He also received the Medal of Valor twice from Mayor Rudy Giuliani for heroism in the line of duty. As I said, we could go on and on with the accomplishments here of Detective Gannon. And we also have Dr. Lee Gilbertson with us tonight. And Dr. Gilbertson holds a doctorate in sociology with a concentration in gangs and substance abuse. He also has a Master of Science in Criminal Justice, where he focused on criminology and victimology. His background also includes 16 years of exemplary military service, infantry, and signals intelligence from 1976 to 1992. My goodness, these men are really incredible. Now, also, Dr. Gilbertson is a staff member of the National Gang Crime Research Center and has participated in every iteration of its International Gang Specialist Training Conference. He's a 3-time recipient of the Frederick Milton Thrasher Award and is the executive editor for the Journal of Gang Research. So we are very, very honored to have both of these gentlemen with us tonight, and we are talking about the Smiley Face Killers. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Hey, Greg, thank you.
It's great to have you with us, and we're very, very happy that you're with us, although the subject we're talking about is a bit terrifying and daunting. But you have taken this on. You've decided that you're going to get to the bottom of it. Kevin, let's start with you. How did you come across these cases and decide that they were worth looking into?
Well, in 1997, I was assigned to the Missing Persons Division of the Detective Bureau. And the first case was the Patrick McNeil in February of 1997. And everything I uncovered from Patrick's case told me that Patrick could not have wound up where he was recovered 12 miles away from where he went missing in Manhattan 50 days later. So to me, I checked with NYPD Harbor, the currents, everything with the way the river flowed, and there was no way he would have wound up out there. And so I knew it was suspicious, and then I had 2 similar cases within the next 15 months. So we had 3 cases which basically ultimately made it a serial. And I told my bosses that, and two of the young men actually wound up in the same exact spot within 10 or 15 feet of each other. So there's no way that they would have came there. The only way I uncovered that they could have wound up in Brooklyn was somebody would have driven the bodies to that location and deposited them very close to where they were recovered, because there was no real current out where they were recovered by this water treatment plant. So at that point, I wanted to investigate them. My supervisors were like, the bodies are recovered now. That's not your investigation anymore. It's now a Brooklyn detective case, because they recovered in Brooklyn. And that's it, And they said, nobody wanted to make this into what was be a serial at that point. And I always say the two most dreaded words in any police department, especially NYPD, after the Son of Sam investigation from 76 to 77, which is serial killer, and then what ultimately is going to follow, which is task force. And nobody wants a task force because it's just too much manpower, money, and everything else. And in 1976, think about this, this is over 40 years ago, it was $90,000 a day to hire the detectives to look into the Son of Sam case. It would be billions of dollars a day, and nobody wants to get involved with that. So it was just basically let it go. They were just silly, drunk young men who fell into the river and drowned, and that was it. But I always promised the family when I retired that I would look into them, never expecting it would come to the magnitude that it is today.
Well, good work, both of you guys. I mean, this is very disturbing, because all of these men that have been targeted, there are commonalities within this group. So they're young, they're athletic, they're bright, they are the same body type also. Any other similarities that I've missed?
Many of them have the same college major. Most of them are in some form of engineering.
Oh, really? Oh, my. So almost all engineering.
Generally speaking, it's either electrical engineering, computer engineering, mechanical, some biomedical, but, some form of engineering. So they're, if you wanted to go just a little broader, you could say that most of them fall within the STEM category, science, technology, engineering, and math.
Okay.
So,
gosh, and these are the thing that's also so upsetting when I was watching these episodes that you were in is the fact that these are young men, bright men that had their whole lives ahead of them, and all described as really good people, really good men. So these were not just the dregs of society; they were picking the best of what we have and abducting them, taking them God knows where. And some of these men would be missing for up to 77 days, and then suddenly they find the body in water in a place they've searched before. These are a lot of mysteries with this, a lot of mysteries. So tell us more about what concerns you about these cases.
Well, like you said, and first off, I'd like to thank you for inviting us on. As a victimologist, there's too often there's nothing we can do because the crime and the victimization has already occurred. But as a victimologist, I know that I can reach out to people and get them smart, inform them about the scenarios and what's going on, and then hopefully we can have some prevention. So hopefully that's what we can accomplish with this. Relative to these young men, you're exactly correct. Not only are they extremely intelligent and athletic, some of them aren't in, organized sports, but they have this natural athletic ability, and they're involved in like skiing and stuff on their own. But every one of them is engaged in their community and in their church.
That's an interesting common ground. Yeah, that is an interesting. And these poor parents, I mean, our hearts go out to the parents and the family members in all of these cases. I just can't even imagine the devastation that they feel, the shock that they must feel. And then you both have to go talk to them about the possibility that they were murdered. But then what you're met with is actually they agree with you. They think, in fact, yes, their sons were murdered.
Well,
that's part of the point. Get Doc.
That's one thing that a lot of folks don't don't know about how we do this. We do not believe in re-victimizing the families, so we don't reach out to them. In a couple of cases, there was one case because the victim had the same last name as me, and so I reached out to the family because of that, and I said that I'm sorry to hear about it, but we wait until the family is ready and they reach out to us.
Well, that's a very respectful way to do it. Yes,
Very good.
I totally understand why you do it that way. That makes a lot of sense. But so far, they don't disagree with you. They agree with you. They feel that the police did not do the best investigation, and their sons didn't suffer from an accidental drowning. They weren't. In fact, one of the cases, one of the young men didn't drink alcohol at all. Yet the police attributed his drowning to drinking. I mean, it's just incredible to us the way these things have been left.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I don't think law enforcement. Like we said, we try not to, to disparage law enforcement. It's just that I don't think most. And believe me, before I got involved in this, I mean, I had a lot of experience in homicide, but I knew nothing about really drowning deaths and decomposition and the level of decomposition and how a body would look. But after, obviously seeing 350, cases plus that we have in our database, we've really developed, and writing that forensic textbook, which took, 2.5 years of, research and everything, we've been able to, compile a pretty good, format of what bodies look like depending upon the temperature, how long they're missing, whether it's for 10 days, 20 days, 30 days, 40 days, 1-2 days, So we have seen, a multitude of cases where I don't think most law enforcement officers have seen that, especially in big cities. It's usually a shooting, stabbing. It's usually in a project. It's in New York. It's in the South Bronx. Or it's in Brooklyn. It's, a couple in Manhattan if it's a robbery. And then, Chicago, big cities, and the South Side, and gun violence and drugs. You're not seeing a lot of this. So I don't think first of all, they have the experience. And then you get the smaller departments in these small little cities and towns, in the Midwest, which really probably don't even have that many homicides, much less a drowning homicide. So, we're just trying to supply them evidence. But, when the kids are drinking, there's alcohol involved, and men are usually more risky in behavior and travel, independently than women who are usually smarter and travel together in groups and packs, that they just figure it's another stupid drunk kid that fell into the water and basically close it shut as quick as possible. So
right.
And if you don't have clear signs of a homicide, money to keep investigating a case where there's no leads whatsoever. So you really and there's even techniques about recovering bodies in water. The FBI has some protocols. They should bag the bodies in water so you don't lose hair or fibers and So there's certain things that they could do better, and then maybe there would be DNA, a touch DNA on the clothing if somebody threw them in. But we're not getting that. So and then when they get the body, like I said, they don't test it. They're not testing the GHB drugs in the body or DNA on the body. And we've done that. We figured, listen, these kids have to be drugged. We put this together back in 2000 and I guess a little after 2006. And because of that case, the one living survivor in La Crosse, Wisconsin, we started looking for a drug called GHB. And at that point, we started finding it like at all our victims, except one of the cases, Todd Geib, who had antipsychotic medicine enough to kill a horse. But most of them had, almost 100%, 99.9% of them had this GHB in it, which is a date rape drug used to facilitate rapes. And it's usually only given to women. And so you have men with this drug, and it's odorless, colorless, tasteless. So that was a perfect drug to give somebody where, they could really just abduct somebody, towards the end of closing time in these bars when everybody is, getting their coat, going to the bathroom, going outside. They're all boxed, and then they just walk these kids right out the door. And we've had a couple of, Doc will explain, we've had a couple of attempted abductions where they always say, why did the killers make mistakes? Well, they have made mistakes. We've had individuals who actually confronted them when they were trying to take their friends out of the bar and got their friend back, and then they drove off, speeding away. So Doc can tell you one of those cases that we had up in Minnesota. Doc, you want to tell them that?
Now, were you able to get any descriptions on these people?
We do. We're not going to give that out right now. We tried to give that to law enforcement, but we're not going to give out exactly who the group is and who, what they look like right now on the radio. To be honest with you.
Yeah.
Right.
We have over time in the past. I had about 14 different people contact me. In some cases, it was their own story from what they remember, because they were, stereotypically in these cases, they're all separated from their friends. But about 8 of the cases, it was the friends who contacted me to tell the story. And the story that they narrate is how they're in the bar, and it's like, where did Tom go? And they look and they see him being escorted out the front door by a couple of fellas. And so they pursue him and end up in a fight out on the sidewalk with these guys, and the bouncers helping them, and they manage to rescue their friend, and the vehicle drives off. But suffice it to say, because, the graffiti that we're sitting on, besides the smiley face, that's the only one we've let out there, but the graffiti and exact descriptions, we have gotten those as to age, gender, color of hair, clothing style, and stuff like that.
Wow, so you have a lot more information than we know about.
On that too.
Mm-hmm.
Well, how many people seem to be involved when they're walking them out, or do they see them with others? Is it more than 2 or 1 that leads somebody out?
3 to 4. 2, usually 2
wow.
is the escort process, and then a couple 2 through in the vehicle.
Right. And in this one incident, when one of the incidents, like Patricia, I spoke to the individual. I said, so he goes, I think my friend would have been in Minnesota. He said, I think this one time, he said, I think they threw him in a white van. The van drove off, the door opened, and he said, I think my friend was going to be one of your victims. I said, well, it sounds like it. Tell me, when did he wake up the next day? How long did he sleep for? He said, like 12 hours. I said, what did he remember? He said he didn't remember a thing, but yet he was functioning completely normal. He was still able to speak and talk, just really like in like a blind spot, where he was like, he was still at the bar, he was still talking, he was still functioning. Walked out with these guys, they weren't dragging him, so he was just like leading the blind, but he was walking out, talking to these guys, whatever, getting in, not knowing who they are, not really to differentiate between his friends or something, and these good guys, bad guys. And then doesn't remember any of it the next day. So you're kind of like in a zombie land, with this GHB stuff.
Well, yeah. I mean, you're really describing mind control in some ways. I mean, I was reading online one of the people, Dakota James, that you investigated, and something about 5 weeks before he died, he called a friend one night begging to be picked up, and he was disoriented. He told her he remembered nothing from the last 4 hours of the night. Mm-hmm. And when she picked him up, and this is the interesting thing, he was walking out of a hotel towards a dark SUV, which was facing the wrong direction and parked in the wrong lane. And the friend told this particular newspaper that she screamed her friend's name. He got into her car, but he couldn't give any details about what had happened to him. So if it hadn't been for her, at that point, he would have walked into that other car like nothing, like a magnet was drawing him in. I mean, that to me, it says there's a little bit more than just GHB going on. What about you guys? What do you think about that?
Well, I don't think I'm not really into mind control stuff, even though I know there's some people who tried to use that before. Obviously, in the military, we know an individual who was involved in that kind of stuff all the way back from the Iran-Contra scandal and stuff like that. But for us, to me, I don't like. They asked me, "What do you think that car was?" I don't know. It was either one. Obviously, we think that car was staking him out, was following him, was hoping he would get into that car. The question was that an attempted abduction that night, or was it just a practice run for what would eventually occur? We don't know. I mean, if he had gotten in, maybe they would have taken him that night. Maybe they didn't. But obviously, he was terrified for his life. Felt terrified. Should have went to the hospital. She should have took him. But at that point, he said, "No, I'm fine. But she said, "I think you were drunk. You should go to the hospital." "I just want to go home. He was so So the short, but look what happens. Then a week later, so
You're right.
you know,
5 weeks later,
it was a test run, or it was, or 5 weeks later. Was it a test run, or was it, an attempted abduction that went wrong? We don't know. I mean, but the idea is obviously we know they stake our victims out. We know that these guys, some of them are trained, some of them have actually like military training. There's surveillance, counter surveillance. They watch them. There's no way you could grab 40, 50 guys that are, biological, chemical, and electrical engineers unless you were, specifically looking at them, because there's thousands of kids going to colleges. How do you just keep picking these little ones, or they're involved in criminal justice, or involved in medicine?
That's for sure.
You would have all different, characteristics, as Doc says, across the spear, and also, as Doc always said, there's no real tall, skinny ones, and tall, fat ones, no short, fat ones, and short, skinny ones. There's always, like you said at the beginning of the show, that one demographic, 5'9", 6 feet, 160 to 190 pounds. They're all right in this athletic mold, and all these kids, are the best of the best, as we always say.
Is there anything about nationality that might be the same within the group?
We saw something you wrote on an email to us about that gentleman who wrote that book 411 about German heritage. But to be honest with you, no, we had a big sheet, but we never got the parents to fill everything out, where we had all these questions: nationality, religious, affiliations, blah 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 blah, subjects in school and whatever, and athletics. But no, we had never put anything that composite. Did you know anything about that, Doc?
No, yeah. I remember we talked about that way back at the beginning, and if you look in the back of the book, I've got like 108 variables in our database. And one of them was not only religion, because religion can be, a label that's applied to you by your parents. So we look at religion as well as spirituality and their sense of what we do here. Are there consequences after death, either in an afterlife or a next life, or whatever their belief system is. And I looked at it at first because, and I saw that in your email on Politis' book. He sent me a copy of it, so I've read it, and I thank him for, he praised us quite well in there. But the comment that many of them are German, and at first, because I speak Czech and German, so I was just doing stereotyping their last names. They're Bohemian, or German, or Polish, or Czech, or whatever. And there's a lot of European, but that really doesn't hold. And the only reason it kind of fits that is because you're talking about cities that were established by, immigrant populations tend to congregate with their own kind.
Right, they do.
Like where I grew up, you were either German or Norwegian. You go up north, entire cities that are nothing
English
but
or Italian.
Yeah, so when you get into a city like, or you get into a state like Minnesota or Wisconsin, you're going to have, I think, when I was at Ancestries and stuff, 71% of the original immigrants to Minnesota were German.
Right.
So.
And don't you have a cluster there?
Yeah, we do in Minneapolis and Milwaukee and La Crosse, and those are all German cities.
Yes, exactly.
But as soon as you get to a place that's really, really ethnically and culturally diverse, like New York City or Chicago, then that breaks down. Then you start picking up individuals from Pakistan, Afghanistan, India, China.
Right. Well, to be fair, what Politis is talking about, because I've read all 7 of his books, and he is very, very specific that when he has looked into this, what he has found is not necessarily 100% German, but he has found people of German heritage. So they could have some ancestor, grandparent, great-grandparent, whatever. So they have some German. Now, there have been 5 physicists that have gone missing in the United States, and every one of them was German. So there is something going on. with that.
Well,
I think
five, what, Patricia?
Physicists. 5 physicists have gone missing.
I've heard about the different physicists that have gone missing.
Physicists.
There was a whole
and
study
they
on
have
that.
never, no bodies have never been found, disappeared without a trace. So there may be something to, I think, to what David has found. And again, it may be that there is some piece of a heritage of, some ancestry that leads back to Germany. But certainly you have identified a number of coherent facts about how these young men are somehow connected and why they're being targeted. So there's this big mystery of why them, best and the brightest. Now there's also the mystery of the fact that they're taken someplace for a period of time. Right. What are your thoughts on that?
We've been trying to figure that out. One thing we know is that we know there's not sexual assaults. We know there are some physical assaults on the body that you've seen. So we've also had some confidential informants, and we know that there's been some just regular mind torture, which sometimes they say is worse than regular torture. Like, how do you feel about dying today, or how do you feel about dying tomorrow? So it's like one of those kind of things. Even if you were taken in Afghanistan, you're always worried that eventually they're going to be looking to chop your head off. When are you going to die? And it's like, geez, how am I going to get out of here? So I don't know.
Right.
Sometimes the thought of death is worse than the act of death itself. So that's maybe part of this sickness or just this mental torture that they use. But I don't know specifically what else it would entail. Unless Doc may have some other ideas of what possibly could be going on during the period of time that they're holding them and drugging them and everything else. So I don't know. But it's definitely not about kidnappings or money or anything else. You know what I mean? So there's not a ransom kind of thing at all. So.
It's not something that we can easily wrap our minds around. I think the usual reference points, like what you're talking about, kidnapping or torturing someone. I mean, these bodies you're finding don't have the typical torture marks on them. So doesn't appear to be going on physically. This is not anything ordinary. Everything that you guys have uncovered, God bless you for doing this. But this is not easy work because it is not what we're used to seeing at all. Even with serial killers, don't serial killers usually work alone, not in groups?
Yeah, most of the time they do. But obviously, that's why we look at this differently. We look at this as domestic terrorism. We always said because the fact that there's a multitude, of individuals involved in these in this organization and cells, it's no different than any other. And fortunate enough that I was able to find Doc, that was another whole epiphany in itself. But the fact that I had never known that he was a gang expert or a military expert in signals intelligence and put together all these maps and tracking the Scud missiles during the Iraq War. But I saw the study that his young women in his graduate class had done when they were looking at the I-94 the I-94 serial killer, and he developed a distinct pattern in the Midwest that went from east-west, east-west, north-south, and then back to east-west, east-west, north-south again. So I said, that's so specific that, wow, it didn't come on with the other cases I had on the East Coast. But I said, I wonder if they could, and we came out there and we spoke together. I said, I got to find that guy. And then my partner Anthony was like, why that guy? I said, listen, I'm just telling you, I know I got to find that guy. Not like I said, not knowing that he was a signal intelligence expert. Just the fact I said, if he can do what he did with that study, he can take all of our material, put it on a map, make sense of it. He can understand, my psychotic information here and make heads or tails of it. I said, we got to go find him. And we did. And then, after we went together for 2 or 3 hours, we started coming to the fact that maybe this is not one individual because we had multiple victims on the same night in different cities. So he said, could this be a group? And he said, well, geez, I never thought of it like that, but, I'm a gang expert. Could it be gang oriented? And that's how we got together and started working together for the last 12 years.
What is it that you think that they're after? What is it that you think the people that are abducting these people, what is it that they're after? Is it to terrorize people, or is there something more involved in it?
Well, I think a little bit of both. That's a good question, though.
Yeah. Yeah, that the motive, and that plays a little bit to the other question there about the time. I mean, these abductions are so anomalous. They just don't fit the typical crime phenomenon.
Not at all. Yeah.
If someone's abducted, that they're sexually abused or physically abused, they're used for labor, or they're trafficked or something. And these kids are all gone for such different periods of time, anywhere from a couple of days to 3, 4, or 5 months. And you can't always say, well, they were frozen in the water, because the river's been open for, a month and a half, and they still haven't shown up, and then all of a sudden they show up and they're not decomposed. So where have they been? And it's
exactly.
And that's the one thing, even though, when we did our first press conference in 2008, then we started getting all the emails and phone calls, and that's when it was confirmed for us that there were multiple people involved and that there were cells. But nobody's ever been able to tell us, because we haven't had any survivors that escaped, after being abducted. We've had some that were liberated during the abduction, but nobody to tell us what's going on while they're gone.
Right.
And like Kevin said, when they test them and look at them during the autopsy, there's no signs of sexual abuse. And there's all kinds of theories out there about what happens to them, that they're trafficked, used for sex, and some people said they're used for snuff films, but there's no indication of any of that.
The body,
that doesn't seem to fit.
Yeah. Taking them for? We can't answer the question, what are they taking them for? But
could it be for their DNA?
That we can look at, and we can say that they have to be some form of hate crime.
Right. That's what Dr.
They're clearly taking the best of the best.
Yeah, but could it possibly be that they want to take the DNA from these people, or take something from them to give to somebody else, because they're only choosing a specific style of background, build, etc.? Is that they're looking for something like that?
That's actually enough theories out there that they're collecting sperm from them.
Yeah, I mean, we've heard that before in a whole different arena on our show. But let me throw something out to you guys, okay? Because we've thought about this. And I know you have identified a number of variables. I know, Kevin, you and I talked off air about blood types, and I know that's something eventually you may look into. But I'll tell you what comes to mind to me. And none of this makes any sense until I think about Project Paperclip. And I'm sure, Doc, you know about Project Paperclip. Human experimentation. Nazi scientists, over 1,600 Nazi scientists were brought to this country back in the 40s. And what's to say they're still not doing human experimentation? Now, they certainly would have the technology, probably far advanced. They may be doing human experimentation. They wouldn't want anybody to know what they're doing. And who would they take? Probably young men like this. Now, it's just a fantasy, a hypothesis, call it whatever you want. But in my mind, when I think about all of these factors, how these people, the perpetrators are never caught. You don't see them on camera. They disappear. They take these people, they're gone. And then the bodies are dumped in water, and they haven't been in water all this time. So something else is going on. But a project like that was, I know a lot of it was for rockets to be developed and other types of warfare. But human experimentation in Nazi Germany was a very big thing. And that we brought so many of those people over here, who knows? This could be going on. I'm just putting a different filter on this.
There's crazy people all over the place. I'm not going to tell you, my volume is
yes.
And
there's
all
crazy
the crazy
smart
people.
Right. No, and that's for darn sure.
that are in the mental hospitals, unfortunately.
But there seems to, as PK is alluding to here, there seems to be some purpose. There's some mission, especially as you mentioned, if they're using people to grab these guys that have some type of military training. They know what they're doing. To be doing it for this period of time and never get caught, and I know people make mistakes.
Listen, we did the Tuskegee. Remember in Tuskegee, they had the Tuskegee experiments back then. And when was that, in the 60s or whatever? What they did on black people. So, because people still be doing it. We don't deny. Listen. We looked at this thing from the beginning. We looked at cults. We looked at even satanic stuff because we had found some all different kinds of symbols. I can't get into all of them, but so we had to rule out what could be real, what couldn't be real. Is this other symbol connected to the smiley face, or is this not? We had some upside down crucifixes. We looked at all that kind of stuff, and though there could be some, we don't, like Doc said, we don't know the difference of, all the religions of our victims and their spirituality, just the same way as we don't even know the religious affiliations or spirituality of, the perpetrators. So, that would be something to know. But we have been able to put together that obviously not just these kids are the best athletes, best students, come from the best families, and there's an element of maybe anger or hate for something that they don't have that Anthony talked about years ago. But then we know it's more than that. It looks like looks like what Doc said, that there is a real element of hate of these guys, of what they have. That the life that they don't have, the benefits of what they have. Maybe even what some people would call, what do they call that now? White, what do they call it, Doc? for white people that have,
like
that
white
have,
privilege?
White privilege, that's the word I want to say. Yeah, it's like a white privilege. I don't know. That was something we even looked at too in the beginning, with the majority of all the kids in the beginning being, white individuals, so white males.
See, what's strange is the fact you've got a camera on almost every street corner anymore, that there hasn't been some type of a picture or something taken of these people being taken.
Yeah, that's really true. We've had a couple where the kids were like stumbling drunk, and then bam, it's almost like they knew where to grab the kid. The one kid that we did on the show, William Hurley, he was on camera walking, and then bam, he hits like a blank spot, and then he's gone. His phone is gone. It's smashed to death. The battery's out, and the girlfriend is 30 seconds away around the corner, and he's gone. That was an abduction. That they jumped out, they grabbed him, they threw him in. It was like one of those scenes in the movie Shooter when the FBI guy's walking across the bridge. They grab him and they throw him in the car. Because he might be figuring out that the assassination was not really an assassination. They were kind of doing like a Kennedy assassination scene, and this guy was figuring it out, so we got to get rid of him. This kid was definitely snatched off the middle of the street. So what happened to him? These guys were good enough that they had to know where those cameras were, where to grab this kid. Otherwise, we have a plate and everything.
Yeah, Kevin and I went to a case in Columbus, Ohio, and we talked to the bouncer who was on duty that night. And there was some construction going on, and he showed us where the cameras were. And the only way for this individual to get out of the bar was to finagle his way through the construction area, go down the stairs, and then stay within 2.5 feet of the outside wall and walk for a half a block down that wall and then cut through the parking ramp. So
Jeez.
Like Kevin said, they know where these cameras are looking.
And we found exactly how we did it. He said, could he get out here? What about this camera? He says, no, he wouldn't be seen over here. So if he stayed, like Doc said, against the wall, there's a parking lot right there. He could have brought a car right out. He circumvents that camera, puts the individual in the car, and they drive off, and nobody knows anything. And we found out exactly how they could have taken him out. It was the only way he could have got out without being on camera, because he was on camera in and out of the bar all night. That was the only way he could have got out.
But you're talking about a very... Yeah, you're talking about very sophisticated people here that can pull this kind of thing off.
Without a doubt. Very proficient at what they're doing.
Yeah, definitely. And, combined with the people who have contacted us and told us about their friends being led away and stuff like that. We know that there's human intervention. It's not like David's case in that book 411. I mean, you got people that are walking, one behind the other, and they're talking, and all of a sudden the one guy doesn't hear the other one, and he turns around and there's nobody around, and they're standing in a field. And
right.
It's like,
right.
now those
like,
are just plain weird. Those are just plain weird.
Well,
but,
there are definitely a lot of cases
We definitely have
like
human
that.
intervention in ours.
Yes, this definitely involves humans. But I will tell you, there is a strange case that you might want to look into. It's slightly different from what you've been looking into regarding the Smiley Face Killers, but it is telling. Now, this is, again, a young man, fits this profile, okay? He was from Massachusetts, and he was out in Michigan. He was going to college. He told his roommates, I'm going to go cross-country skiing. He went out to the lake, and he didn't come back. So his roommates called the police and said, he hasn't come back, and would you please search for him? They went there. They found that his footprints went out to the middle of the lake and just stopped. So they figured he drowned. They told his father, I'm sorry, your son drowned. We can't find him anywhere, but he probably fell through the ice and drowned. Well, this is the interesting part that I think you will that will pique your interest. This young man, again, fits this profile. Very smart, religious, good guy, all of those things. He turned up in a field in Pittsfield, Mass, about 15 months later. He woke up in a field wearing somebody else's clothes. He had a satchel of maps next to him and no memory of where he had been. He made his way to his father's house in Deerfield, Mass, and knocked on the door. I mean, you can only imagine his father opening the door and seeing his son standing there who he thought had died. Now, Paulides contacted this man and said to him, would you please consider undergoing hypnosis so we can find out where you were and what happened to you? But he refused. Strangely enough,
really?
I believe he's a PhD in psychology, and he refuses to go under hypnosis to find out what happened. But somebody like that could be so valuable to all these cases, even though this one is slightly different. He wasn't grabbed by humans as far as we know. However, this is such an odd case, and he was somewhere for all that time but has absolutely no memory at all. There are a couple of others, and again, they might be worth looking at just because, who knows, if you can get one clue, that would be so helpful in your quest to find out what's going on here.
We did try to do that with one of the individuals that was with one of our victims that went one night. The only way we could do that, Doc, was if we did that again with one living witness, if he remembered anything, But we have never followed up on that with him. But we did try to do it with one of the guys who was with one of our victims, and the police tried to pin it on him as if like he killed this kid, and we knew he did it because our victim was in the show when Luke was on. He was on. He was still in the bars drinking when this other kid was at the hospital. And we've had that too, where we've had multiple victims drugged on the same evening and wound up in the hospitals. And now here's what we try to figure out with that too. Was that a thing where they drugged two individuals hoping to get one, and they just took the one they got, which makes more logical sense, or was it also a thing where if worse comes to worse, when we get our guy, if another kid is drugged and he winds up in the hospital sagging around, falling down, drunk in the street, and the police take him to the hospital, that the police just say, geez, it's too bad this so-and-so fell in the drink, but you know what? These kids are so drunk. We had two other kids that we wound up taking to the hospital the same night. These kids could have fell in the Mississippi River too. Was that the to make it look like it so? So we don't know which scenario was it. Did they get the main guy they wanted, or did they just drug a couple in a case? They weren't able to separate him from the friends. But it's amazing that in multiple cases there was multiple participants, and there was multiple attempted victims who had been drugged on the same evening that wound up, in the emergency rooms, and their friends had gone missing and wound up drowned. So, there is a level of sophistication to this group and this organization.
It certainly is.
It's really good.
Well, even with GHB, now I'm pretty familiar with that drug, but does it really wipe your memory? I mean, my understanding of that drug is it incapacitates you and it can make you very fuzzy, hazy. But does it wipe your memory? Is that one of the characteristics of it or not?
I don't know. That's one of the things I was going to do was I told Doc and the guys, you should put it on. Let me take some of this and find out what it does. See if somebody can walk me out of the bar. Well, you need a control study. You need to find out what it really does.
Right. That's a good point.
And see if somebody could take me out of the bar and I wasn't aware of it. Because that's what I always saw. I saw one time they did on one of these TV shows where the guy was on GHB and they walked him out of the bar. And he's like, oh, and he couldn't tell the people next to him, like, they're abducting me. I'm a police officer. Don't do it. And they took him to the basement. They were going to torture him and everything. And the police actually came and rescued him right at the end of the episode. But I was like, well, that looks like it. But I'm wondering if he really did know, because of course, like I said, a couple of victims that Doc had spoken to, and the one I spoke to from Minnesota, they didn't remember anything. They didn't recall anything. It was almost as if like the Cosby incident. They know somebody sexually assaulted them, but they don't really remember anything from what happened that night. So I don't know if these guys are good enough as far as how much. Is it a certain amount of GHB they have to give them? Otherwise, they might be awake. That may be part of it, too, because GHB has a half-life of like 20 minutes. So, we get a kid who's like, he's got 20 milligrams, and the police go, well, it's not that much. But 20 minutes earlier, it was 40. 20 minutes before that, an hour early, he was at 80. Well, that's pretty incapacitated, especially if you got a .12 or .16, BCA at the same time, BAC at the same time.
Right.
And then in cases where the parents have asked us for advice, and we tell them, well, check and see if you still have liver tissue samples or specimens.
Right.
And they do. So they have them tested for GHB, and they come back with 85, 130, micrograms. So we're talking about levels that are way above anything that would be normally in the human body. And it definitely inconsistent with postmortem production. And the reason I say that is because if you're going to attribute the GHB to postmortem production, you also have to have alcohol production. And not just ethanol, but all of the alcohols. And they all come in different proportions to each other. Like ethanol to N-propanol is 1 to 20 to 1. So
isopropanol,
these things should be in proportion. So if you've got that much GHB, you should have a lot of alcohol. And in many of the cases where the individual has the high GHB, their BAC is like 0.08, 0.085, 0.12. They're really not that drunk, but they've got this GHB at a level that would make them sleepy or actually out. And then there's another drug that has been like an urban legend for years, but now there's actually a lot of evidence on YouTube that it really is coming out of South America. Some people call it the zombie drug, the devil's breath. Maybe you've heard of it. It's scopolamine.
Uh-huh.
And it literally steals your will. You can be walked. You're still walking upright, and I can walk up to you. It's almost like waking hypnosis. I can just walk up and say, "I want you to give me all the money in your pockets," and you'll hand me all your money. And then 5 hours later, you're talking to a friend and say, "What? Where's my money? Gave it to him? What?"
Well. You see, and that's what makes me think that with Dakota James, for example, when he was willingly walking by himself to that dark SUV, that's what made me think there has to be something else involved. Maybe it is this other drug you're mentioning, but there's something that these people don't think clearly in any way, shape, form, or manner, and they'll just go off with anyone willingly. And clearly they're going off willingly with these people. These military-trained people, God knows who they are. But this started, the first case you identified anyways was in 1997. What about today? Now, here we are in 2019. Do you have any more recent cases that have come to your attention?
Oh, yeah. All the time now. We get calls all the time for these cases that that we usually get Google alerts when somebody goes missing under this criteria of male drinking, wind up drowned, young male, But there's a couple of where the families have actually started calling us for one. Did you see this one from a year ago or 2 years ago? Yeah, that we actually missed, that we didn't have all of it. So there's a you don't realize how many are really happening across the United States that we're not aware of. And it doesn't mean they're connected, all of them. We can't connect them to our group unless we go to the scene. If we go to the scene and our graffiti is there along with the smiley face, then we're pretty sure our guys were there not just to have coffee. If we have a victim and we have their symbols, then we know that they were there. And so like I said on Dr. Phil, our database is like 350. We have 100 cases where we have the paperwork where we could probably prove homicide. But there's another 100 cases where we can connect it to the group. So we have like 200 where we can say those are connected to the group, but we can't prove a homicide because we don't have all the police paperwork and the toxicology reports yet. But I'm saying if we have that much, and the other 150 fit the pattern, I could even say that out of the other 150 from the 200, that I would say 70-75% of those guys are probably connected too. Even though I haven't been there, because they're so close in, you said in the fitting a pattern, that I can't believe that those kids were all accidents. Even if half of them, you're still talking about another 75 minimum. So I mean, you're talking a major amount of young men. You're talking 250, 275 to 300 kids already.
That's a lot.
Good
and
Lord.
Have you looked into any of the cases that have been reported in the UK? I understand that they're reporting upwards of 100 very similar cases to yours.
Well, there's over 80 in Manchester. The Manchester Pusher. I have 5 cases in Southern Ireland, a couple in Wales. I think there's like 4 or 5 up in Scotland. 21 in France. So there are European cases that fit this.
Right.
Do they all have the smiley face left with them as well?
I don't know.
I have a friend of mine in London that went to a few scenes and found them, but like the Manchester Pusher, we thought might have been connected, but we're thinking now that the fact that those men are mostly gay, that looks clearly like a hate crime. Now, whether or not our group is involved with that, which they could be, but right now we know that most likely is a hate crime. But I do have some smiley faces in some other parts of England, but they weren't where the Manchester Pusher was. So I don't know if the Manchester, those 80 or 90 young men that Doc was talking about, which are mostly gay, were smiley face connected, because we haven't been there yet. So we were actually thinking about going out there this summer. But the other cases, some of them in France and in England, we believe that those cases would be connected to our stuff.
Amazing.
Yeah, that's what makes me, again, go back to...
There was one case in France
where
an American who was in France, an American who lives over there, had known about the cases from being in the States and everything. And the one happened, and it was a young gay male again. So he went down there, and sure enough, in the alley right next to the bar was a smiley face, But there has to be this other graffiti associated with it. That's how we distinguish whether or not just happens to be somebody putting it up there or not.
Copycat.
On that note, though, I did get an interesting email 2 weeks ago from a guy who is a part of a tagger crew, and he said nobody is going to take the time to put up just a smiley face and not put up their personal tag or something else. And it would naturally maybe not necessarily be in the same paint, but you're going to be able to tell it was done at the same time, especially if you check it, check that area routinely. And of course he didn't comment on the other graffiti that we're looking for, but he said an isolated smiley face. And I would agree. And, once in a while I see that, just a smiley face, and that's the only thing there. Or maybe a smiley face and a marijuana leaf. Well, okay, that's not ours. That's not ours.
Okay.
But if it's a smiley and then one of these other 12 symbols, there's a really good chance of it then.
Well, the fact that this is happening in other countries, again, makes me think that there is a real mission to this. And I know you're considering a hate crime, which of course is reasonable, but this seems so different. This seems like there's something they're after. They're trying to achieve something or some strange goal by doing this. And to me, it looks like it's involving a technology or an experimentation that may be outside of our realm of understanding. It just seems so purposeful. Let me put it that way.
Oh, we believe it's purposeful. And when we show you, when we put out who's doing it and why they're doing it, I think then it'll start making more sense from what we know. I mean, doesn't mean when they have these young men for a period of time. I don't know specifically what they're doing with them. Like I said, it would be nice to have somebody who have actually gotten away. But I don't. To be honest with you, these guys are too good at what they've been doing. I don't see them getting away once they unless they get away from the initial abduction.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't see them getting away once they've been abducted.
Yeah.
Exactly. I don't either. I think that's just nearly impossible to get away because they're so incapacitated and their mind is just a blank. So it would be very difficult for anybody to escape unless they had some amazing metabolism and they were immune to these types of drugs that they're being socked with. But I noticed that Oxygen did bring in a psychic, and it was a young man. His name escapes me, but he was unable to really get any valuable information.
Tyler Henry, when he does the
Hollywood
medium show.
Yeah.
Hollywood
He does a lot of celebrities. Like young folks. Yeah, he looks like he's very young. But he didn't seem to come up with anything. Which is unusual.
One of the mom, but he came up one thing with one name that he said that you should look at, and it was one of our victims'
friends. One of the friends.
And he said he knew more, and when I spoke to Barbara, Doc and I, we spoke. She wanted to speak to him, so he was somebody we were looking at, but he wasn't the. We actually have some of the bad guys. We know who some of the victims who have been killed. We know who they've been killed by, and we have real suspects in the case. And in that case, we did, and we know this young man that he had mentioned was a peripheral, character. He wasn't really part of one of the group that was really involved with Tommy's death, but yet he might have, on a peripheral mission, he'd be somebody on the outskirts that may have known something. He'd have some kind of information, even with just ancillary at best. He would know something, and that's something to talk to him about. But we know he wasn't an intimate part of the abduction crew or involved with Tommy's death. But so that was the only one he really came up with.
He didn't really come up with anything else. I do recall that he mentioned a friend who may know more, but he really didn't have any other information, which I found unusual because really good psychic mediums can sometimes narrow this down. But he was unable to get much, and he said that. He said he couldn't really get much at the time, which was strange, too.
Of the drug that they're on, do you feel that they were drugged continually the whole time that they were missing?
We do.
We to manage them.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So was there a large amount of drugs in the body? Was there a large amount of drugs in the body when they were found, or was it just enough to let you know what it was, but not?
No, well, there was a lot sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, GHB, Rohypnol, those types of drugs, especially GHB, is not the typical drug that they screen for. And there's a screening test and a quantitative test.
Mm-hmm.
Screening test is hot or cold. It's positive. You come up positive for a class of drugs like barbiturates, amphetamines, and so forth. And only in a couple cases did the medical examiner And now this is interesting. The medical examiner was suspicious enough that she tested for GHB.
Good.
Right off the get-go.
Good for her.
But then she closes it as an accidental death.
Mm.
And she did She did find it. Now, in another case, the individual had phenylethylamine, PEA, which was debilitating. But other than that, like I said, the parents come to us, and then we tell them, do you have liver tissue? In 100% of the cases where the specimen still existed and we paid for the testing for the parents, and in 100% of those cases, we have found GHB.
Under the circumstances, and since these additional things are found around the body, like the smiley face, etc., why don't they, or have they not started to just automatically test for a GHB and whatever because of the circumstance?
Because
or do they not pay attention to it?
Well, it's an extra $300 for them.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And it's money, and they usually the city doesn't have money unless they think there's some kind of suspicious matter, which they're not doing that. So their attitude is, why exhaust money and manpower and they're doing to investigate these? So they close them, which is unfortunate, for us and for the families and the victims. I mean, it's not fair, but and this is what we were trying to do, is just to try to enlighten the law enforcement and the communities that something else might be going on here. I think you guys need to take a little closer look at this, and if you need some help, we'll come in and assist you. We're not here to just trash you and disparage you and make you look incompetent. Nobody wants a bunch of retired guys coming in second guessing their work. But if you're not aware of what's going on, and like especially with the gang, and our background, plus especially Doc's being a gang expert, it comes in and tells you here's something that might be happening in your community. You got to look at that. We had that even in the city where we weren't aware of a different group that was coming in. And then like the Bloods and Crips. I mean, that was a West Coast thing. Really back in the the 80s, and then all of a sudden we started getting something here. I mean, it was like, well, we got to get up on this because it wasn't.
They travel.
That we saw in the South Bronx, you know what I mean? And now all of a sudden you got to say, hey, and how do they operate? Well, how do they do that? How do they move their guns? How do they move their drugs? How do they operate? How do they use their lookouts? What's the criteria? How do they do it? So otherwise, you can't apprehend them. You have to be. You got to have the playbook. Unless you have a playbook, you don't know who the players are. So you need to know that.
Well, now, you guys are tracking some pretty bad guys. Do you ever get concerned that they're going to turn on you?
Yeah, not as much. I mean, it could be. Sometimes I always say, if they came after me, then it would be pretty clear that, maybe that guy was right. Maybe there was something going on. Maybe we should have been listening to him. Maybe that would spur an investigation. But I think they've been so good at what they've been doing, like a subversive movement that, they feel pretty good that they don't have to do anything, and they know that law enforcement is either not adept at, investigating these, or at this point doesn't even care. They just figure like, hey, I think sometimes there was so much taunting that they would almost put information right out into the public domain as if, let's see what else we can do to get away with it. See if they'll even question it. See if there'll even be somebody in the newspaper that'll say something, because it's like, you can see them getting more bold and more brazen, and it might even be a little bit of a taunting. It's almost like maybe it's it could be a little bit of a rush for them. I mean, so we don't know, but I'm just saying we've seen changes in some of the that they're not going to be stupid, but yet at the same time, they put a little bit out there, and you see how far can they go to push the envelope. Everybody likes to push the envelope a little bit, whether you're a fighter pilot or you're a Navy SEAL or these guys are a killer. Serial killers, they do the same thing.
Yeah. Well, they seem to be
we're really not much of a threat. If you think about it, we're really not much of a threat. All we can do is educate the police departments, because they're not, like Kevin said in the very beginning, they're not trained in how to handle a drowning. A body that's recovered from water is that's it. It's a body recovered from water. It's not a crime scene. That's pretty
Mm-hmm.
much the way they've been trained. So they just do what they've been trained in. And we don't have arrest authority. So, we're not the threat. The police officers are still the threat. We're just educators to get people to learn more about this, into it.
But you could be a threat if you start to reveal what's really going on. That's my, my concern for your safety, I guess, with this. Because again, I get what you're saying, though.
If they thought we really knew something, maybe they're probably saying, "Hey, those guys are like they know something's going on, but nobody's listening to them. They're probably laughing at us too." As far as that, like,
I see.
they're
well,
banging their head
you're
against
right.
the wall, and nobody cares.
Yeah, they have a level of arrogance about it because they've gotten away with it so many times and over such a long period of time. So they probably feel they've got it down to a science and nobody's going to catch them.
Exactly.
But all it takes is one mistake.
If we kill these guys, if they kill us, people say, "Shit, maybe those guys were right." Where it's part of my language. But the idea is the other thing is it's like these guys are coming out with something. Oh, they found that other piece of evidence, but nobody's listening to them. They just oh my God, we can do anything. Nobody can.
Right.
They're just a bunch of conspiracy nuts. You know what I mean? So.
Right, but this is what's so great about the Oxygen series that you've done. I mean, bringing this to light, going on Dr. Phil, going on Dr. Oz, bringing this into people's living rooms. I really commend you. I think this is what needs to happen. People need to get aware, and it will continue to happen. And parents need to know what to do, what to ask for, what to tell their young men to beware of, and also, God forbid, there's another body that turns up. They need to ask the police to do certain things. So you're really raising awareness on a tremendous level. Thank God. You're doing a great job. And I also want to mention you have two other team members. You have Anthony Duarte and Mike Donovan. And, again, you guys make a terrific team. But this is scary stuff. I mean, you're very brave. I know you think you're not at risk, but I kind of sit back and wonder.
Yeah, for sure. That is for sure.
Well, thank you for the compliments, but we just feel like it's our job. Somebody's got to do it, and so it's our job.
Well, you're doing it well.
Yes.
What we hope
now tell us.
And we do have insurance policies, and I don't mean life insurance. I mean I have individuals who I have extreme confidence in. Kevin knows a couple of them as well, who I'm talking about, who know exactly what we know. Maybe not to the extreme extent or whatever you want to call it, but they do know what the graffiti means, what the other symbols are, and who's doing it. And should something happen to us, they know where to find my backup copy of my hard drive.
Oh, good.
Wonderful.
Okay, well, then you've really covered yourself with that.
I thought he meant 9 millimeters and AK-47
or
something. I thought he was talking about. I thought he was talking about 40 he carried.
I thought he was talking about Smith and Wesson. Come on.
I thought he was talking about the heat. Bring the heat. But I guess he was talking about a life insurance policy.
Intelligence.
I get it. All right.
Well, Doc is a professor, so.
Right. But
Doc,
he's got that big gun. Believe me when I tell you.
Yeah, I travel with Smith and Wesson.
Good for you.
He's got that 40 caliber and some other stuff.
You should, yes.
He's good.
Excellent.
Have you
spend 16 years in the Army and not learn how to fire a weapon?
That's right.
Yeah, no, he's pretty good at what he does. No, he's good.
Have you been threatened
I saw
in
that
any way
in
since all this started?
Yes.
Have you been threatened
in any way since this all has started?
2011, 2012, I did receive a death threat in the email.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no. Really?
But they tracked that individual down, and it turned out to be an idle threat. And it was actually ridiculous because the individual was accusing me of being the one who was doing the killings.
Oh, wow.
Jesus.
Good grief.
Ridiculous. Somebody's
Did you
delusional.
tell me you didn't like water?
Didn't
We're
go
good at
anywhere.
tracking people too, so we can track people down. Obviously, our guys that we're looking at, they're really good at what they do. Trust me when I tell you, I have to give them a lot of credit. I mean, listen, they're good. Like we mentioned, they communicate, on the dark web. They they're listen. They've been getting away with this for how many years now? It's over 20-something years. So to say 97, that's 22 years. I mean, it's you have to be pretty proficient at what are you doing. Yeah.
Right. Doc, let me ask you a question. I know at the beginning of the show you mentioned that you have a lot of variables that you're considering. Can you give us an idea of some of the other variables that you've looked into or the commonalities among these young men?
That's good.
Well, let me grab a copy of the book here. And it's in, let's see here, Victim Profile Operationalization Appendix E in the book.
Okay.
So we had personal data, and that, of course, was name, last name, first name, ancestry, date of birth, all that kind of stuff. Their primary language and any secondary languages or tertiary languages that they spoke. Marital status, job, financial status, employment, was it part-time, full-time, was it a job or a career for them? And then their activities.
So this is pretty comprehensive.
Yeah, and their criminal history, and then one, and I really didn't think about this until we got Campbell's case. And talking to the girlfriend, says he feared water so much that when they beach, he wouldn't even get off the grass and go out on the sand. But yet he supposedly, in the rain, left the bar, walked out onto the deck overhanging the river so he could pee in it and fell in.
That doesn't make sense.
Boy, did he even get that close to the water? So one of the variables I kept, and I had to ask the family and friends about this, was the attitude towards water.
Right.
So that's a pretty unique variable.
So there was only one that came up with that fear, or was there another one?
Oh, no, there's several.
In our show, Luke
I'm
Holman
sorry.
was the number second show. I'm sorry, Patty. Luke Holman was the number second victim on at the Oxygen show, and his mother, Patty, said, not only did she say, stay away from the water, he goes, Mom, I never go near the water. I hate the water. So he was another one that would never went to the water. So there's a lot of victims like that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. And was there anything else?
Physical data, so like height and all that stuff. Their health data.
And all that matched up. Okay. Was there anything in the health data that was that correlated?
No.
Anything that struck you in their health data? Nothing. Okay.
I wanted to know if they had an allergy and they were taking a medication for it, or if they had a heart condition or depression or something like that. And we looked at substance use, alcohol, illicit, as well as prescription drugs, marijuana, whatever, psychological history. Looked at their scholastic data, their major DP athletic scholarship. That's interesting, too. Even though most of them were either the high scorer or the captain on their team, they weren't in college on an athletic scholarship. They were there on an academic scholarship because they were either a 3.9 or a 4.0.
Whoa.
Wow.
Yeah.
So they were super smart.
Well, that's why we were saying they were taking the best of the best. They were trying to take these kids out. So we looked at that as a level of domestic terrorism and the fact of what is the country always saying we need. Like Doc said earlier, we need science, technology, engineers, and math, and everything is STEM, and obviously get women more involved in that because men were basically taking over that field. And then here, what are you doing? You're taking out these guys. Is there a reason why you're taking these guys out? Like they always said, Rome fell from within. It's the kind of thing like that. Is it to try to take these young men out? Does that lower the United States' status in the world? And we know that a lot of the engineers now are coming from India and from China. So to try to make it even easier to get some of those engineers over here with with green cards. What happens if the ones that are here that are studying wound up, being abducted and murdered. Almost like that physicist thing that you said that Paulie said. I did read about that.
Yeah, the 5 Germans who disappeared.
Yeah, I was like, what happened to that? I mean, that was like crazy when we read that. I said, that really seems like government oriented or something, But like a CIA
it definitely
type
does.
Or,
You're right.
Or a Kremlin type of thing, or take them out. So that seemed like something totally different than we were looking at. But it was something that obviously we, caught our eye, and then we said, geez, is there any relation to that to our group when we first started? We looked at all of that other kind of stuff,
Yeah, because just to me, looking at this, and I mean, obviously I'm a lay person. I don't have the training that either one of you have, but I mean, I'm looking at a very sophisticated situation with these people. They're going to a lot of trouble to cover their tracks, and to me, I'm thinking, but why would it just be a hate crime? Why? There's got to be something more to this story, and you guys may know and not be able to say yet. There's got to be something more. I mean, it's a lot of trouble to go to.
And especially again, to keep them for the period of time that they do in some cases.
Yes. I mean, that they could be discovered, taking them to a hidden location somewhere. But again, that's a long period of time to have somebody at a location and risk discovery. So it's a lot of trouble to go through. And obviously, this one young man, they kept him alive for 77 days. That's a darn long time. So why?
I mean, about moving the body, even though you're doing it at night, subducting the body is dangerous enough. Now you got to bring back, a deceased human being and put him in the water in a spot where hopefully nobody's there, and hope that you don't have a car accident or somebody pulls you over and you have a body in the back in the trunk or whatever. I mean, it's really, it's pretty brazen. I mean,
it is.
I don't know how
There's a lot to this. Exactly.
And the one that was gone for 77 days. Now, was he as healthy at that point in time as he was at the point in time that he was abducted?
Yeah, he looked almost pristine. That's what made it so easy. I said to Dr. Phil, listen, Doc, if these young men were in the water 1/4 of the time that they were missing, sometimes even 1/10 of the time in a case like Brian, 7 days, I said, we wouldn't be having this discussion because we're really good investigators, but we're not that good. The body would be all decayed and black, and once you get to that level of that type of decomposition, you don't know. It's at least 7, 8 days. There's really very little evidence left. So is it 7? Is it 77? Once they showed in the Todd Gott case in the last episode, by the 14th day, that body was being ravaged by the insect activity. So, but he was missing 21 days and had nothing. At 14 days. After 14 days and the body's like that, and it's all ravaged, how you can't tell whether he was in the water for 14 days, whether it was 40 days. So believe me, but it's obviously it's easy for us if a body is missing 70 days and he looks like he's been dead for only 2 or 3 days or 7 days, like in Brian's case, it makes it a little easier. So same thing like Dakota James. He's missing. Todd Guy's missing 21 days. He's only dead for 2.5 days. 2.5 days and 21 days is a big difference. So, when a kid looks like he's just came out of the shower and he's missing for a week or so, that's pretty
scary.
Easy. And it's something the normal investigators should know that also. Say, like, this doesn't match, but they don't know, and at that point they just let it go. And that's what we're disappointed. We're disappointed more in the medical examiners sometimes than some of the, some of the cops, because the medical examiners you would think would know more, but even I've spoken to some medical examiners, and they say, we don't know about the levels of decomposition. Our main job is to open the body up, do an autopsy, and see what transpired. You know what I mean? Was he drunk? If they did the real test like Doc said with the GHB for the liver, was there GHB? Was there a drug? What could have facilitated this death? They're looking for strangulation. They're looking for, other different things, trauma, contusions, some kind of, blow to the head, blow to the body. When we have that in the Dakota James case where he was strangled and they missed that was disturbing, because that was a medical examiner. That was different than, a really badly decomposed body. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, also, a lot of these cases, you're saying that the cause of death was undetermined. They couldn't even determine what killed these young men.
Exactly.
But for example, chapter 8 in our book, Jelani Brinson, I sat with Janice Amatuzio, the medical examiner, and I had read the autopsy, and I was trying to decide of all the pictures she had, which ones I needed. And she had finished writing another report, so we sat down and we proceeded to go through the photographs and discuss the autopsy. And she put right in there that he couldn't have been dead any longer than 18 hours prior to being found in that water. But he'd been missing for 8 days.
Long. Yeah,
and it really frustrated her that she could not find a medical reason for his death.
Right. That's
the
no
other
bruising
or
anything on the body.
And you use up all the oxygen and pass out and then eventually die. That poor medical examiner is going to be left with no cause of death. And in that point, they are left with no other option but to put undetermined for cause of death.
Well, for me, I would make it a homicide. To me, I call that semantics, because if you know the body's been missing for a week, but is only dead for 18 hours before the body was recovered, you have to say to yourself, where was he for the other 7.5 days?
Exactly.
And it's not like, he was out, he was hanging out hunting or fishing with his friend, or he went hanging out down in Vegas for a week with his friend, and now wound up come back and then drowned. I mean, so where was he? And he didn't call his mother, and there's police reports on looking for this kid. It doesn't make sense to me. So I think it's homicide, but they're saying they can't do anything to make it a accident. And this is what it really shows about drownings. And we think that we know a better thing about drowning than most medical examiners, in the fact that drowning, there's no real cause of drowning. The real drowning is an exclusionary diagnosis when nothing else is left. Right. So what they say is, alcohol, acute alcohol intoxication, drowning, some water in the lungs. We've been able to determine that most of the drownings that we've seen that are real drownings, the victims have over 1,000 milliliters of fluid in their lungs.
Water. Yes, so exactly. And you're finding bodies without that. So let me ask you this, because unfortunately we're coming to the end of our...
I'm going to tell you one thing. The other thing that we would like is that they would test the water in the lungs, you would think, just to see if they really drowned in the Mississippi and didn't drown in the rain. And the only time they would do something like that would be if it was a wife. If it was a husband and wife, I'll tell you one thing. If a wife wound up in the water, they'd say, that was a homicide. The husband must have murdered her. That would get the investigation that these young men should get.
You know it. Well, listen, guys, I hate to end this conversation because it has been such a delightful evening, even though we're talking about a very difficult subject. You two are so knowledgeable, and I know your heart is in what you're doing, and we can't thank you enough for what you're doing. How can we all support you? That's my last question for the night. How can we all support your efforts in getting renewed by oxygen and going on with your investigation? What can we do?
I wish I could tell you. My thing, Doc might have something. My thing eventually is, I think I should write a change.org. Have somebody check our website. We'll maybe put up a change.org, and if they click on it to say, yes, the police or FBI should investigate it, we know that 100,000 signatures now, it automatically goes through the White House, and the FBI would then, as being the investigative body, would have to investigate it. So that's something we may have to do. But you have to check our website, GDI, Global Death Investigations, and then eventually we'll put one up, and hopefully that would be something that would really help,
Well, we will make sure that our audience helps you out. We will help you out with that because you're doing great work. And honestly, we can't thank you enough for everything.
What you could do now is go to Oxygen's Facebook and just make a comment about the episodes and about the book or the series.
Okay, so we'll go to the Oxygen Facebook. I will post your website as well for GD Investigations, and we'll make sure that we rally the troops as best we can to make sure that people are aware. I'm sorry, could you repeat that, Doc?
That we can help out 6 more families.
6 more.
That'd be great.
God.
That'd be
wow. Great. We really want this to continue.
We've already turned a couple of the cases, so a couple of them have already turned already, so that's pretty good. So, they're already, some of them law enforcement are coming along on board, so that's actually a positive thing,
That is
that's
a great
wonderful.
Great thing. Well, again, thank you, gentlemen. We'd love to have you back. We will definitely invite you back again because, again, we just loved having you on the show. Very stimulating conversation this evening. A lot to think about. So
Definitely.
next week, everybody, we'll be back with Frank Chili.
One last
we're talking
thing,
about. We're
at our
talking about
website, there's an
UFOs.
email address, and they can send us tips and stories. That would really help.
Oh, okay. We will
great.
make sure that they know that as well. Okay. And everybody will be back next week with Frank Chili talking again about UFOs and the government cover-up. Until then, we'll see you on the Blue Highway. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thanks for listening. Tune in next week for another radio adventure with Supernatural Girls.
Hey, thank you, guys. It was a great show.
That it
Thank
was.
you, Patricia.
That it
Thank
was.
you guys. Both of you guys. It was terrific. Thank you, ladies, so much. I don't know how to thank you. It was really good.
Okay. We'll keep in touch, and please do the same.
Yeah. Listen, as soon as we start putting the stuff out, we'll let you know. We'll come back and tell you who the killers are. Okay?
We can't wait to hear. Okay. Good work.
Okay,
Thanks so much.
Talk to you soon.
You're welcome.
Bye now.
Thank you.
Okay. Good night.
Bye-bye.